one of my favorite games of all time is Dokapon Kingdom. As the story goes, me and a bunch of friends got together on a Friday night when we were in middle school. One of my friend's parents went to GameStop, saw this game, and they were like, oh, he would like that. They bought it. We gave it a whirl. Long story short, I fell in love with the game, fell in love with the series, and now I collect a bunch of games from the Dokapon series. So a little bit of background to the game. The Dokapon series began all the way back in 1993 with Kessen, Dokapon Okoku for Densetsu no Yusha Tachi, and it's still getting releases today. There are some Switch releases that we may or may not talk about in this video. But how the gameplay is for most of the Dokapon games is kind of like a Monopoly party RPG, where it's very clearly an RPG where you are leveling up your character, equipping different items, all in the story. But how it's sort of like a Monopoly party game is you are on very much a board game type of map, where you spin a spinner every turn, you go to different locations, and those locations can be anything from towns for you to defeat, to random encounters, to very special events, warp points to an extent. And your ultimate goal is to have the highest value of all the characters at the end of the game. So that can be from defeating towns, upping the value of your towns, beating other players, giving certain items to certain places, stuff like that. So definitely very unique, very different. I absolutely love it. This is the one on the Wii, and we're going to talk about a bunch of different versions as we go. So I've become such a big fan that I have at least one copy of every game in the series, where a lot of the games have been restricted to Japan. But as you'll see, I've kind of upped that title, that accomplishment when it comes to Dokapon games. So without further ado, let's get right into other games. So the first one we're going to talk about, this specific one is not a new game. This is Dokapon Okori no Tetsuken, also known as Dokapon Ikari no Tekken, which was developed and published by Asmik Ace, which was the developer and publisher for a lot of games early on in the Dokapon series. So this game specifically isn't my new one. This one was released only in Japan on PlayStation 1 in November 1998, but the new addition to the collection is this PlayStation The Best variant, which was released just over a year later in December 1999. So the gameplay for Dokapon Okori no Tetsuken is very similar to all the other Dokapon games, very much like what I just described for Dokapon Kingdom. And just cool to add another variant to the collection. Next up is a Game Boy Advance game, and I wouldn't blame you if you've never heard of this. It's pretty obscure, even though it did come out here in North America. So we're going to do this in two parts. First one, Dokapon Q Monster Hunter, which was also developed by Asmik Ace and published by Asmik Ace in Japan. However, this was released in Japan in August of 2001, but it was released in North America just less than 3 months later as just Dokapon Monster Hunter. Dokapon Q Monster Hunter, Dokapon Monster Hunter. So this one was published by AIA here in the US. But these games are slightly different from the Dokapon formula that I've already talked about. So instead of sort of this like board game RPG, what you're instead doing is completing missions as you go. And as the name would suggest, Monster Hunter, part of your job is to collect monsters. So it's kind of like a Pokemon-like, where you collect different monsters so that they team up with you. Now, I've had these games before. However, in the time since I've made my last months in review video, I don't think I've done one since like September. So this is just kind of a collection of different things that I've picked up since then. But I already had these games in loose cartridge form. However, I took the time to complete them, so now I have them box, manual, and the game. I had to buy this one complete just to say it was complete, so I have an extra cartridge of it that I'm probably just going to get rid of. But still very cool nonetheless. When I bought Dokapon Monster Hunter, it was a summer that me and a bunch of my friends went video game hunting, and it was like $15, and the game has now skyrocketed, so the fact that I even got it with its box is even cooler. So just kind of interesting to add different pieces to the collection. Also, now that I'm looking at it, the subtext to Dokapon Monster Hunter is just something straight out of like Microsoft Word, which is actually kind of funny now that I'm looking at it. So pretty cool to add to fairly obscure pieces to the Dokapon collection. Now, going back to Dokapon Kingdom, the Wii game I just showed you, we have 2 new collections that are also Dokapon Kingdom for Wii. So those 2 are Dokapon Kingdom in Japanese and Dokapon Kingdom this version. So yes, I have 2 English versions. However, the one that I've had before, which I didn't know this was a thing until I was just, on eBay, as I do. So the original release, I don't know if this was the original release or a second print run, but the version I had a just a kind of uncolored version of the disc, whereas this new one that I just got is a colored disc. So just kind of interesting, just kind of weird. Very much like the PS1 version of Dokapon. It's just kind of cool to get another variant for the collection, and this happens to be a variant of Dokapon Kingdom here in North America. Whereas this Dokapon Kingdom in Japanese is very special because up to when I bought this game, I had at least one version of every Dokapon Kingdom game between either language. So there were some Dokapon games that didn't come to North America, so I got the ones that were in Japanese, but the ones that came to North America, I only got them in English. And then as time went on, I started getting more and more of those Japanese versions of English releases. And this is the last one that I needed. For some reason, this game is just as expensive in Japanese as it is in English. So it took me a little bit of time to get it. But now that I have it, I'm super stoked to say that I have a complete English and Japanese Dokapon collection as far as having the games. As you saw, I have a loose Super Famicom cartridge. I'm going to show another one in just a second. But, as far as having the games, now it's like fully complete in English and Japanese. So it's just a matter of CIDing the versions that I already have. Just to talk a little bit more about Dokapon Kingdom in terms of like this very specific release and not just the series. So Dokapon Kingdom is a remake of Dokapon 321 Arashi Oyobu Yujo on Super Famicom, which came out, it's the second game in the series, so it came out in either 1994 or 1995. I do not remember. But this game was remade into Dokapon Kingdom, but its release schedule is a little bizarre. So it was originally released in Japan on PlayStation 2 in November of 2007. Then it was released in Japan on the Wii in July 2008, so just under a year later. Now, both of these versions came to North America as PS2, stab myself in the eye, as PS2 and Wii versions in North America in October of 2008. So, PS2 in Japan first, then Wii in Japan, and then we got both versions at the same time in October of 2008. So, just about a year time span for all the versions to release in Japan and in North America. Kind of interesting. This is one of the first few games where Asmik Ace didn't do them. So Dokapon Kingdom was developed by Sting, but it was published by Sting in Japan and then published by Atlas here in the US. So it's kind of interesting because one of the reasons why this game is kind of obscure and hard to find is because, as my understanding goes, a lot of Atlas games here in North America were kind of like underproduced. So there's not a whole lot of copies of like Atlas release games. So if you look at Atlas release games here in North America, some of them might be very obscure and not a lot of copies, and they might be kind of expensive. The value of Dokapon Kingdom has gone down over time for a reason that we're about to talk about, which is actually really good, but still kind of expensive, still kind of pricey. I think when I got my first copy of Dokapon Kingdom for PS2, I think I got it for like a steal on eBay like 10 years ago for like $25. But when I bought the Wii version, it was $100. So still kind of expensive. But one of the reasons it is getting less expensive is because just this past year, I know it's 2024 now, but within the past year, about a year ago, it was announced that Dokapon Kingdom would be coming to Switch, which is super awesome. And in April, it was released in Japan, and in May, it was released in North America. And the only real difference from Dokapon Kingdom for the Wii and PlayStation 2 versus the one on the Switch is that it has online connectivity, which really does make a big difference because it's such a multiplayer-based game. So to finally get the opportunity to play with other people just around is fantastic. Even though this video is not at all sponsored because I don't have sponsors, I was going to put a link to where you could buy it on like Best Buy or Amazon, but it is sold out everywhere. I got this game on Best Buy, but I think the day it was released, it was sold out just the day of, which is kind of crazy. So very interesting, kind of weird. But this isn't the new release because I bought this at launch because I was super excited. But in the time since I've made the last video, I was able to pick up the Japanese version of the game as well, which is really exciting. So our version came out in May, but just a month before in April, the Japanese version was released. So that's really, really cool. Very interestingly, though, it was developed by a bunch of different teams. It was developed by Idea Factory and Compile Heart, along with Sting, who made the original game. But it was published by Compile Heart in Japan and Idea Factory here in North America, which is kind of interesting that Atlas went away from the game they originally published. So just kind of bizarre, kind of weird release histories, even if they just have different publishers across different regions. Still cool nonetheless. So that was just me recapping some of the Dokapon stuff that I got over the past few months. My intention is to do some other in review type videos while I'm on some sort of break. So, and at some point we'll get back to Nihon no Konu Henshokai. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. If there's anything I got wrong or that you can add info to, please let me know. I would love to continue to learn about these games. I know a lot about Dokapon, but I don't know everything. So definitely let me know if there's anything I can do better. So in the meantime, I hope you all had a great holiday season. Happy 2024, and see you soon. Bye.